everybody. I'm Trey. I'm recording this little intro message for our first little video hangout I did. I wanted to share it widely with everybody and tell you a little bit about it. So I'm here in Switzerland, and we decided to do a video hangout, and you can only get 10 people in, which is sort of a problem. But we figured out a way to stream it live and record it. So this first one I did with my friend Lisa Bettany, and then we also had Keith Barrett come in and record and broadcast the whole thing for us, so I thank him very much. So now everyone can see it. And it's just sort of a laid-back thing. Call it sort of a variety hour, because it's kind of whatever interests me, and that's usually photography, but a little bit of everything. And we invite the public into these hangouts, so we get all kinds of random people that join, and it's kind of interesting. And I thought this was a nice way to record it and share it widely with everybody. So, anyway, I'm here in Switzerland. I thought I would use this opportunity to show you a little bit about what I can... It's hard to hold that far for me, you know, when I am recording myself, so I just went up to a mirror here. So, let me give you a little tour. So here is my thinking chair. I have one just like Steve from Blue's Clues. And I've been hanging out there way too much, doing a lot of Google+. I mean, kind of in the middle of the day when the light's not so great, or deep into the night. So let me go out here and I'll show you what Zermatt looks like. I want to thank all the people that suggested that I go here from the blog. You guys were right on. So here you go. Let me just do a quick pan and then I'll give you a little tour. It's nestled here inside this wonderful valley in the Alps, and it's really just quite beautiful. You know, almost any direction you look is amazing. There is a train. You can see there's this mountain here, or a little hill, I guess, and it goes up higher and higher. But anyway, there's a train that works its way up there into the Alps, where you can take some nice photos. And I've done that a few days ago. Here's a really nice church. It's pretty inside too. Just to the left of that is a really awesome park. Beyond that is a really neat cemetery. And they have little candles all over the place at night, so it's great for night photography. I don't know if you can quite see it or not, but I got some shots there I'll share. Right down there, you can't quite see it, but is sort of the main drag that goes all the way down, and there's always people walking on it. All kinds of little pastry shops and chocolate shops and all the kind of stuff that I like to see. And then around the corner here, you can't quite see it because of the hotel sticking out there, but is the Matterhorn, and that is awesome too. Just imagine awesomeness behind that. Okay. All right, so anyway, I'll kind of point this at a reflective window and you'll see part of me. I hope you liked the first video hangout. I'll do a lot more and get all kinds of people on, friends and new friends and this sort of thing. And let me know if you have any ideas or suggestions, and I'll be attentive to them. Okay, enjoy. Thanks. Bye. And we have in the left corner Andy Benkart. Where are you from, Andy?
I'm in Boulder Creek, California, which is near Santa Cruz.
Okay, what do you do out there to stay busy?
I work in a small marketing firm and try to get out and shoot a lot of photos with my iPhone right now.
All right. So you and everybody else can post links to your portfolio or your blog or your company or whatever over in the chat so that we can check you out and check out your photos and intuit your soul through your portfolio. Okay, nice to meet you, Andy. And then in the next square we have Chee Chew, which is a pretty awesome name. Where are you from, Chee Chew?
I'm in the Seattle, Kirkland area.
Okay, what do you do up there?
I work at Google.
Oh, really? What do you do at Google?
I manage the team that builds Hangouts.
Oh. Oh, so how did you get in here?
In our midst.
Yeah. Hey, okay, I have a serious question. Do you have a secret button you can push to insert yourself into any hangout and usurp somebody else?
That would be telling, right?
That's a yes. That's a total yes. Awesome. Well, we love hangouts, obviously. If we do something wrong, let us know.
You guys are good. I'm just kind of worried about some of the issues that you guys are seeing.
Well, yeah, we'll get through them. It's still in beta, right?
Still in field trials, but
Yeah.
I wanna collect the data and sort of figure out what we can fix.
So, can you give us any kind of scoop on any new features that are coming in Hangouts?
I don't talk about future plans.
See, I need to get that decisive when people ask me about Camera Plus, because I'm so bad at that because I'm so excited about stuff that we're doing that I always like leak a little bit, but that's a good response. No.
It's hard.
But you can't fire yourself, Lisa, if you leak it.
Yeah, but my team get very, very angry. So.
Okay, and you, Dave Veffer, where are you hanging out today?
I am at my house in New Jersey, Paramus. Not too far from where Lisa is, I guess.
Cool.
Cool. And what do you do in real life?
I am technically, my title is a CTO, but basically I do all the computer work at a large commercial photography studio.
Oh, really? What's that like, working at a big studio as an IT guy?
It's interesting. I get exposed to a lot of interesting high-end equipment, and, you know, I get to see kind of a lot of photography going on and lighting, but I'm not actually doing any of that. So on the side, I've now started learning on my own, and so I'm enjoying that.
Okay, so you're just photo curious.
Yes.
That's cool. All right, Henry, where are you hanging out today?
I'm in the middle of Ireland, in a town called Mullingar.
All right. What do you do out there?
I'm a freelance writer, which sounds a whole lot better than looking for a job.
Have you written anything that we might know or you want to tell us about?
I do a lot of things that don't actually get my name on, but I do have a few bits and pieces. I'll put it up in the chat.
Okay, good. Thanks. And you, Jeff, where are you today?
I'm living out in Southern California.
Okay, cool. And we see your daughter back there hanging out on the laptop. That's cool. The whole family on a computer. That's awesome. Just like my family. And hey, Nathan, what's going on?
Not much. Just saw the hangout that thought I'd join in.
And you're the same Nathan, right?
I am.
So Nathan, tell everyone the story of how we met.
Well, I was in Disney after the shuttle launch, like you guys. I saw Robert Scoble tweet out and went on a couple rides with you guys and stuff, so it was cool.
That was cool. That was great of you to come up. And Scoble even interviewed you, right?
Yep.
And he put you up on his blog, and now you're like this famous 15-year-old kid.
18, but yeah.
18,
sure.
I'm sorry, 18, not 15. I just remember you being young. When you're 40, everything is like 15. Everything is 15 when you're 40.
Okay. Guess I'll see that when I get there.
Yeah, in a long time, brother. Yeah, so link people to your interview so they can find out more
my
about
Google
you.
Plus is being awfully slow, but I'll see what I can do.
Oh, okay. Well, it's good to see you. Hey, Lisa, so you just came from this Camera Plus meeting, right? What is a Camera Plus meeting like? Do you guys just sit around and count money, and they say like, okay, Lisa, you count this pile, and I'll count this other pile, and we'll add it up? No?
Problem is that we're a fairly small team, but also we are spread all over the world. So when we meet, it's generally at an ungodly hour for one of us or many of us. So we were meeting, and so we have team members in New Zealand and Spain and Austria, as well as like spread out across the US. So it's generally, I mean, we meet about features, like new features we want to add, and you know, what's going to go in the next version and who's going to do what, and bug fixes and people who are yelling at us on the iTunes reviews, which I'm sure you get a lot of too. Oh, those commenters. I swear they're worse than the worst trolls on the internet. The people that review your app, give you 1 star, don't really explain. They're just like, worst app ever. I hate you. You know, it's never something constructive. And when we always write to people who are critical of the app and say, well, you know, what's wrong or what's crashing for you? How can we fix this? Because obviously there are problems that happen on some people's, you know, devices that might be an older device or something that we're not familiar with, and you know, we might be able to fix things for them. But yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the problem with the those rating systems is that developers don't have a chance to respond. It's not like TripAdvisor, where somebody writes an awful review about a hotel, the manager can go respond, you know, and say something that at least have some kind of feedback, the other side of the story. And I think part of the problem is that Apple doesn't, they don't put out their own app, so they don't feel the pain that we do, because, you know, we really try to make everybody happy. And if someone complains, we want to understand what's wrong and try to help them with their problem. We're not evil, but they make it sound like we just screwed them out of 99 cents. They were just...
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. And I don't know how you test bugs on your app, but I mean, it's such a huge dynamic process, testing for bugs and making sure that it's going to work for everyone, because not everyone, you know, like obviously I use an iPhone 4 and that's my primary. So if there's a bug that's on the iPhone 4, it's something that gets fixed right away. But if you're using an iPod Touch, you know, it's something that, you know, we try to test on, but it's not going to be as thorough. So, you know, we're constantly looking at different ways to test bugs and make sure that, you know, everyone is getting heard and we're not leaving like angry people in our wake.
Yeah. Well, can you talk about any new features? Because I bet everyone here uses your app.
No.
Oh, darn.
Definitely not. But there's going to be something new coming soon. And you know, like everything, there's so many different camera apps out there, so we're always trying to add new things and, you know, make it better.
Yeah, I understand. That's cool. Well, tell us as soon as you can. You'll have to, I'm sure you'll tweet it out or Google Plus it, or that's a good question. Here's a good question. Now that we know you love Google Plus and all this sort of stuff, as soon as you have something to announce, where's the very first place you'll put it? Will you put it on Google Plus or you put it on Twitter? I
honestly, over the last week, I've almost shifted entirely to Google Plus, mostly because I feel like it's a more constructive feedback loop. I feel like people are more genuine, and I feel like there's a lot of interest and excitement happening, whereas Twitter is just the same old, right? It's whiny people complaining at me, or you know, it's sort of stagnant. And I know a lot of people have been, I mean, I haven't really joined in the Scopal debates back and forth about what I love and hate, but I feel like it's a great platform for photographers, and I feel like finally there's a place where I can put my images, they're going to look good, because like, let's face it, Facebook crunched them into oblivion. I mean, whenever I see your shots on Facebook, it makes me cry, literally, because they're so crunched and so horrible. And then Flickr was my favorite place, but recently it's become a very negative, you know, I get a lot of negative criticism on there, and I feel like the UI doesn't allow me to explore enough. And I feel like on Google Plus, I have an amazing list of photographers that I follow, and I'm able to just, you know, glance down at all these amazing photos and plus one them and comment on them and engage with people who want to talk about the things that I want to talk about, which is mainly photography. And so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I love it too, obviously. I think it's great. I've discovered so many new photographers, and so I think one of the little things about it is that it's so easy to follow somebody that's interesting, right? You can kind of stick them into the acquaintances, and because if they, let's say they post a few interesting photos, right? You're not sure that you really dig them yet. So you can kind of put them into like a holding pattern circle and kind of watch that for a while, right? And then if they keep posting interesting stuff, if they keep, you know, stimulating you visually or making you think or whatever, then you can like upgrade them to your photographer circle. And then that becomes like your main source of really high-end kind of self-curated stuff. And so it's it's just a much cleaner way to find and discover new inspiration. I love Google Plus. I think it's great.
For sure. So something I wanted to talk about with you, because obviously your recent trip, you've been posting so many amazing photos, and I feel like I need to get whatever lens you've got. Because I feel like I look at your shots, like I just went to Grand Central Station and I looked at your shots and you just get so much wider. So I'm like, I felt like, 16 millimeter was like, that was wide enough, but you're actually shooting most of your stuff at 14 millimeters.
Well, what lens are you using? 16 to 35?
Yeah.
On a Canon?
On a Canon.
And you have a full frame camera, right?
Yeah.
Well, mine is only 14 to 24, so I'm not that much wider.
But I feel like it's just that little extra,
Yeah. Well, when you're at such a low number, 16 to 14 is quite a jump. But have you ever tried the Canon 10 to 20? Is there a Canon 10 to 20 lens?
It's only for crop sensor cameras, so I can't put it on this one. My only options are a 15 millimeter fisheye, which is I think about $800, and then the 14 is like $2,000. I'm like, wow. And I'm thinking, well, do I go to the 15, see what's happening at that? But I mean, I'm wondering how often you use 14. Do you shoot a lot at that? I mean, having 14 to 24 is what you're shooting at. Like how much movement do you do? Do you use that zoom, or are you mostly shooting it?
I do use the zoom a lot. I'm always somewhere between 14 and 24. I might aim one direction at some mountains and do 24, and then I may aim 45 degrees to the right and pull it up a little bit and go to 14. So I'm very flexible. And well, what do you think? Do you have a resistance from the fisheye lenses because it just makes everything look so crazy?
No, I'm just wondering, do I invest in, the 14, or do I just like give the 15 a go and see what I can get with that? It's just, and there is also a new Canon lens. It's the 8 to 15 millimeter, which it would be crazy town.
Yeah, that is crazy town. Right. Yeah. I mean, you could. It wraps around so much you could see all your own secrets. That's a crazy lens.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I felt like I was getting enough at 16, and then I felt like when I look at your pictures, I feel like I just need that little bit extra. If you're shooting indoors, like you shot the British Museum, and you're just getting like a little bit more of the ceiling, a little bit more of the, a little bit more in the frame that I feel like tells a more thorough story.
Yeah, it's sometimes a little bit more is good, but also sometimes a little bit more is bad because as you continue to zoom out, you start to see new things leak into the frame. You're just like, oh, that's interesting. And you zoom out more, you go like, oh, that's interesting. Before you know it, the whole photo is, you have so much in there. It's not about any particular thing, but it's about the whole scene, which is okay. But if there is like one interesting thing in the photo, it ends up getting lost in the scene.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, does anyone else in here use wide-angle lenses? Anybody? Any wide-angle lens photographers?
I used to shoot with a wide-angle lens when I was using an SLR, but since I'm using just an iPhone right now, I'm going with what that gives me.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of iPhone photography?
Right now, I do quite a bit. I'm still trying to process some of my stuff so I can get it up online, but it's all I've been shooting with for maybe about a year.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? It's so handy and tiny, and I think once you have the photographer's eye, whatever that is, there at some point you cross the Rubicon from just being a regular person into being a photographer, and then you start seeing little beautiful compositions all over the place, and you can't help but whip out your phone to take a photo. It's impossible, and it's hard to pass by these things, you know.
Absolutely. Those little
Yeah.
things are what's great about photography, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, when you're in the studio, do you look at what kind of lenses these guys are using? Do they do a lot of wide angle work, or do they do mostly? Is it mostly like product and model shoot type stuff?
Mostly like room sets and products and stuff. The main camera is an H2 Hasselblad with a P45 back, and that's most of the time he's using, I think it's a 70 to 110 zoom lens on that. That's pretty much the only lens he uses on there. And then he also sometimes uses the 5D Mark II with just a with a 24 to 70.
Ah, okay. Do they do live? Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I just wanted to ask you, when you head out on these adventures, how much gear do you take with you?
Oh, well, I don't go too crazy. I take a Nikon D3X as my main camera, and then my backup is a D3S. I only take a few lenses. I take my 14 to 24, and then the other lens that I use a lot is the 28 to 300, and that's a great lens. I use it probably 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time I use the 24, the 14 to 24. And the 28 to 300 is not the fastest lens in the world, but I'm on a tripod most of the time, so I don't mind a little bit slower lens. It's just fine. And then on my D3S, I usually just keep a 50 millimeter prime on there because I use that for people shots or found objects or this sort of thing. What do you carry with you when you go around? I know you did a big trip in Europe, and you said that your back and arms were killing you after a while.
Well, until I met you, I wasn't really an HDR tripod sort of girl, you know? I shot a lot of people stuff and portrait stuff, and most of the stuff I did was, you know, either like strobist stuff, but then you got me hooked, like literally hooked on HDR stuff. And so now I have to lug around this stupid tripod. And I have to say, the last time I brought it, and I brought it on that trip, I literally smacked about 3 people on an airplane with my big tripod. So I need to become more aware of that. But this is my problem, is that because I shoot, you know, portraits and that kind of thing, that I have, you know, I need my 50, I need my 85. I now have like a 100 macro, and then, you know, and my wide, but I don't have anything, I don't have any huge zoom lenses, and that's something I've been resisting because that's something I really don't want to lug around when I'm traveling. And and just I've tried so many different bags, like literally almost every bag on the market, to try to find something that works well for me. I have a bit of a sad back from my figure skating days, so I'm always, you know, looking for neck straps and bags that are, you know, wheelie bags that I can not necessarily, you know, carry with me all the time. But
yeah, I know what you mean. I think all photographers have a love-hate relationship with finding the perfect bag.
I am. Oh, it's just, you know, there's never that perfect bag that sort of fits exactly what you need. It's either too small or too big or uncomfortable, or I don't know. It must exist, and maybe I just haven't found the perfect bag. But it seems like you need one bag to travel with, because of course you want to carry everything that you've got onto the plane. So you need that bag, but then you also need like a day bag, and then you need a sort of like smaller bag for when you're just, you know, heading out on
why don't you design a bag? Surely, you know, you're like a celebrity photographer, right? And don't these, surely, maybe you can't talk about it, but I bet one of these companies has contacted you and said, hey, Lisa, why don't you design a bag? And you could put your name on it and blah, 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 blah. And you could say, I've been looking over for the perfect bag, and so I just made one myself. Here it is.
Have you guys played around with the Kata bag? We used it. I'm a videographer, filmmaker, indie producer, not a shooter, but we used this for our video gear, and it worked really well with our Panasonic DVX. and then we were able to carry a lot. But it's been really comfortable and portable. And when we traveled internationally, it kind of was small enough that it didn't get a whole lot of attention. So I'm wondering if you had any experience with that bag.
Yeah, I've used a Kata bag. Those are good. You know, Kata makes only two things.
Actually,
they
I
make
had the same
camera bags and they make armor for the Israeli army. Yeah, so they're pretty tough. But hey, by the way, welcome, Adam. You just kind of popped in there. Where are you from?
I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. And as I said, I'm an indie film producer. I don't do any of the shooting. I have other people do that for me. And previously you asked about wide-angle lenses. We tend to use that a lot with our lens adapters that we use for our Panasonic HVX. We have a Red Rock. And we'll often use the wide-angle lens, especially because that helps us to get into tight spaces when we're shooting in location.
All right, interesting. What's the name of your outfit so people can look you up?
It's Blind Lyle Films. And
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Hello, welcome, Ollie. You joined too. How are you doing?
Hey, Trey. Good seeing you again.
Where are you hanging out today?
I'm in Florida.
All right. It's toasty down there, huh?
Yeah, it's toasty. It's not that bad, though. It's getting a little cooler, so it's kind of nice. Well, for the evening,
Good.
at least.
Hey, you and the other local entrants, or new entrants, can pop your URL into the chat so people can look at your website and stuff.
Sure, sure.
And we have another new addition to the Hangout. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you doing?
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Toronto. Hi, Lisa.
Bye. We've been communicating. She's an amazing photographer and Canadian, so.
Cool. What's your website, Sarah?
I actually just posted it on Google Hangouts, so it's just my name, Sara Collaton.
Sara, how do you say that? Collaton? Yeah. Okay. Well, nice to meet you. What kind of pictures do you like to take?
I just came back from New York, so I shot everything there with the wide. I really like doing street photography. I kind of got into photography starting with concerts, and that was just 2 years ago. And I haven't really been doing that much lately.
Well, this is interesting. A street photographer. I'm always envious of you street photographers that seem to have an effortless time getting amazingly interesting street photos. So give us some simple truth that I'm not seeing.
Well, the last couple stuff I've been doing recently with a friend is rooftop, and that's not easy because you can't be scared of height, and you have to be able to get on top of high buildings. So the last one I did was on top of the Sheraton Hotel in Toronto. I'm just going to try to find the photo. But actually, it was another photographer in New York that got me into street photography a lot more. He's a filmmaker. His name's Andrew Wonder. And he did a video that's on Vimeo called Undercity. And he shoots street photography all with his small rangefinder film cameras. So he really pressured me to shoot wide and get a lot closer to people, which is kind of outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah. I met a really good street photographer from Tokyo named Alfie Goodrich. He runs Japanorama. And his little insight to me was he holds the camera kind of down by his tummy and he looks down at it, and he says that whenever you take photos from that height, that it does something very subtle to the viewer and it makes them feel a little bit like an 8-year-old kid walking through the streets, kind of seeing everything at that height. Gives it a little bit of an ethereal feel.
Yeah, I mean, I was shooting from the hip for the first day just because I wasn't comfortable getting that close. I shot everything on the 16 to 35 and usually, going between 20 and 35 for the most part. So yeah, and it's just nice to have a different perspective than the majority of the people that are, 5'5" to 6'5", and seeing everything from that point of view.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lisa, do you do any street stuff?
Well, I hadn't been doing anything, but when I moved to New York, it's literally, it's totally changed my perspective on street photography because clearly it's a lot more accepted here. And before I tried to take photos in San Francisco and Vancouver, and I'd always received really sort of aggressive reactions to pointing, a big giant camera at people. But here it seems like, I see street photographers everywhere, just, and I think it's accepted here. So I've been shooting a lot more, and I've actually been shooting a lot on my iPhone because it's something I can do, if I'm just out, with friends. It's not as intrusive as me, with a giant camera. I can kind of get away with it more. So I literally walk the streets wherever I'm going. I just have my iPhone like open, and I'll just snap shots. And I feel like I can be a lot more sneaky that way. And, because street photography isn't necessarily about the quality of the images as much as it is the content. So I feel like you can get away with shooting with an iPhone, in those certain situations, because it's just about capturing, these little moments in time rather than, prepping like a shot, like an HDR shot or something like that. So I found that really, really exciting about being in New York, and because there's so many characters here. It really is like, just you seriously walk, and I'm fairly close to both Madison Square Gardens and Times Square, and I don't know, it's just like you just go there and it's just like, what kind of reality is this? Because this is not something I'm used to.
Well, what tip do you have for shy people? Because you're actually like a pretty shy person. I think most people think you're this extroverted person, but you're very shy and reserved. So how do you get over that when you go take pictures of people in the street?
Well, like I said, when I shoot with an iPhone, people don't know I'm doing it, and
so you're just super clandestine.
I'm like a ninja. I'm like a ninja with my iPhone. I'm not as bold as you. I mean, you post pictures, frequently where you have like that beautiful one of the girl in Tokyo with the cherry blossoms, and you obviously talk to that person to get that shot, and that's not something that I've ever done. And all my street photography shots have been done by being sneaky. And while that works well, and you get these sort of candid moments, which I think, is a huge part of street photography, the shots that people actually pose for, where you go up and talk to them and you get these amazing portraits, I think that's sort of the next level. And that's sort of, I feel like you've sort of moved in that direction.
Yeah, you'll get there. It's not so bad. The thing is that you're still going to get a certain percentage of rejections and negative reactions. But the thing is, you have to not let that dissuade you, and don't let those affect your future behavior. Just keep on going and just deal with the rejections. I think when people get like X number of rejections, they stop and they give up, or they retreat, or they start doing something else. But just kind of keep working through the rejections. And, basically, most people like having their picture taken. I think it's not too much of a problem.
Yeah,
I have a problem.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I have a problem
you guys
with certain people who I find like don't respect the people on the streets. I was shooting with someone a couple years back, and they would just kind of go in like shutterburst mode around someone they would find interesting, or a pretty girl or something. And you could see that the person would be getting uncomfortable. And his only response was, street photography is not a crime, and he would get more aggressive. And so I distanced myself from him for that whole day shooting, because I don't want to be around someone like that. I find just like smiling helps a lot. And I try to just sneak. I try to do it without them looking, or I'm not paying attention to them and I'm just focusing my camera somewhere else if I'm shooting from the hip. But if they do catch me, I just smile, and I'm not stopping to really take a photo. I'm continuing in my walk or journey. And
yeah. I think it's definitely important to keep moving. Like if you stop and there's enough time to have that interaction, but if you just kind of, that's what I've been doing. It's like once they notice, you just, oh, hi person, and then you just like walk away. Like they're not going to chase you down.
Hi person.
Hi person.
Well, Sarah, that's a really good thing that you said, is just to smile at people. And you can tell a lot about someone from their laugh or from their smile. And I don't know, you appear to be a kind-hearted person. And if you were to like take a picture of me, then I look at you, and then you smile at me and just kind of move the camera around and sort of
it's just sort of a kind way, you know. I wouldn't mind, and most people wouldn't mind, and I do that. I smile. I'm very nice, and I do this a lot when I travel. I usually don't know the language of the person I'm taking a photo of, and there is sort of this international set of motions you go through that asks if it's okay to take a photo. And in so doing, you can kind of communicate your personality. And if they're accepting of that, they always say yes. I very rarely have a problem.
Yeah, I find, yeah, I just like, my goal is not to make anyone uncomfortable. And if they don't want the photo taken, like, to me, it's not worth it. I can find something else that's interesting to shoot, you know, like a couple blocks away. The one sneaky thing I do on the subways, because I like shooting people on subways, is it's the only time I use the live view on my 5D Mark II. And I'll just go in live view like I'm pretending to review my photos. I'm just focusing instead, and then I'll just snap the picture.
Sneaky.
That's good.
Has any of you guys played around with any of the lens adapters that attach to the phones? I know there's a filmmaker, Park Chan-wook, who shot a short film and used a lens adapter to get all sorts of great looks on this particular film. I shared the link on the chat, but I'm wondering if, as photographers, if you played around with that at all.
Lisa, have you done that?
Honestly, I haven't. I mean, I think that it's definitely, they look really cool, but the whole thing for the iPhone is that you literally want to pull it out of your pocket and shoot. And the idea of adding a lens to that, and it just kind of takes away. And also, I kind of want to use my iPhone as a phone and like a device where I check my emails. So if that phone then had a giant lens stuck on it, you know, it wouldn't fit in my really tight jeans. So I think, I mean, there was that really funny like mount where they had created a mount, and then you could actually mount your DSLR lenses on that. I found that like absolutely ridiculous. I feel like there's, you know, we have our DSLRs for quality images, right? And the iPhone still is lacking in that department, but the iPhone is great for capturing moments, capturing, you know, something in the blink of an eye. And I feel like anything that makes that more complicated kind of takes away from that. And while I feel like it'd be fun to play around with those kind of things on a day-to-day basis, I really just want to like pull it up and take a shot.
Yeah, well, maybe the problem is you just got to stop wearing those painted on jeans.
But you know, that's my look.
Bigger problem.
Yeah, I bet. Now,
I have that.
I agree with you that I think putting those big lenses on a camera is just ridiculous. You know, I think of course you can do it. You could do anything with technology nowadays, and I think a lot of these people just like doing it just to say they could, you know, just to see if you could run Doom on any device, you know. Of course you could do it, but, you know, do you really want to run Doom on everything? So, yeah, I haven't really used that too much. Hey, Lisa, let me ask you something, because I know that there's a lot of, the kind of thing I see mostly on Google Plus is a lot of like new photographers that are just getting into it. And then they, you know, they look at people like you and Colby and so many other pro photographers, and they think things are so easy and all you have is success and this and that. But one thing I always like to hear about from photographers is like horror stories or like unbelievably bad things that have happened with clients or on shoots or unexpected things. So give us one of your stories.
Okay, well, I mean, my experience, generally the bad things that happened to me were just things that happened because I didn't have the technical know-how when I first started, because I am self-taught and I'm a bit lazy with technical stuff. I really just go out and shoot and try to learn from that experience. And I sort of bit off more than I can chew as far as like doing off-camera strobe stuff when I first started. And one of my first jobs was a wedding, which I don't know if we have any wedding photographers, but it's kind of a living hell shooting. If you don't know what you're doing, shooting a wedding with all those expectations is a really scary scenario. And so I had brought a second shooter, and I'd also rented a bunch of lenses I'd never used before, and I was shooting with a camera that I'd never used before, but also I had a bunch of off-camera strobe stuff set up to do a group portrait. So as I'm setting up, we've got Granny and the aunts and the uncles and like all these kids just ready for this epic group shot. And I like push the trigger button and the flashes don't go off. So I'm like, crap. like seriously, like what am I gonna do? So I try all the things that I know how to do. Is it the batteries? Take the batteries out, put new batteries in. Is it like back then I didn't have pocket wizards. I had CyberSync triggers, which required like a PC cable. So I'm like, is it the PC cable? Is it I went through all these things. In the meantime, like Granny's ready to faint and the kids are like fighting, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? The bride's like in tears because she's not gonna get her group shot. And in the end, I just brought out a giant like reflector, and I just faked it in post. Like I literally pretended that they're like, oh, did they go off? I'm like, yeah, they went off.
Didn't you see?
And then I had to spend possibly like 3-4 hours just making this thing work in post. And yeah, it was a nightmare. And stuff like that, like I shot a whole shoot with a model with I'd set it accidentally on JPEG mode instead of RAW.
Right,
and not just like JPEG large, it was like JPEG small. Or like, I don't know if you read, like recently there was a, double rainbow here in Manhattan over the city. And I don't know if you read about my description, but that just goes to show you that it's like, it continues to happen where I forget batteries, I fill up, CF cards and don't, it's continual where I actually say to myself, I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing.
No, of course you do know what you're doing, but I think the point is that it's always a struggle. It's always difficult. I think the pros have a lot of problems, and I think the pros probably have more horror stories. They probably have 10 times as many horror stories as amateurs. And over time, you just make less and less of these mistakes. But it doesn't mean they don't happen. You make new mistakes in new kinds of in new embarrassing ways. But it's never easy. One time, I have two little stories, not quite as dramatic as yours, but they were kind of personally traumatic to me. One of them, I was in Italy, and I was taking a lot of kind of wide angle shots with my tripod, and this is when I only had one camera. And so I was setting up for a shot, so on and so forth, and it was a little bit touristy. And then these two little twin boys walked by, and they were both about 5 years old, and they had on these little suits with suspenders and little ties and all this sort of thing. And they were really cute. Hold on, let me mute this guy that just came in.
Well, I just got kicked out of the room, so you have to give me a minute or two to see if I can get into this. Because if I can't get in, I can't live stream it. So we lost the stream for a minute.
Okay, you dropped out for a second, huh?
Yeah, I got kicked out, so we lost about 2 minutes.
Okay, is the stream coming back up now?
It is. Let me put it.
It's okay. It's like the dark side of the moon.
I've heard stories of people losing access.
It's okay. I told a story, but it wasn't very exciting.
That was pretty funny.
Sorry, go ahead, Lisa, with your dropping the hard drive story.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're gonna, that stuff like that has definitely happened. I actually put a CF card in the washing machine by accident. That was fun.
Oh, did it still work?
It did.
Okay. Who makes it? You should give them a shout out. Who made it?
SanDisk.
SanDisk.
I think it's probably one of these guys. I don't even have really great ones. Like, I know that. Which ones do you use?
I use these. Let me get them here.
Oh, you have
These,
the fancy ones. I remember asking you this before. You have the fancy pants ones.
These
I just
are
get
fancy
whatever's
pants.
cheapest.
These are fancy pants. These are. Let me hold it up here. Click on my own stream so I can see what I'm looking for.
Oh yeah.
These
yeah.
are.
Fancy pants.
They're from Hoodman, and they are awesome.com. They're super fast. They're really rugged. They're coated with steel. I don't know what good that does, but it just sounds kind of awesome. Oh, hey, we have some new people that have joined up here. Hello, Cody. You're sticking up barely above the bottom of the stream like Ziggy. How are you? Google Plus calling Cody over. Oh, I don't know where Cody's in a parallel universe right now. And Jeff is still there. Your daughter's off the bed. Hello, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing great, Trey. How are you?
Good. Where are you hanging out today?
I'm in St. Louis. Are you still like in Europe somewhere?
Yes, I'm in Switzerland. Tomorrow I'm taking a train from here to Zermatt. They have this train called the Glacier Express. It's a 7-hour train ride through the Alps. And I'm in this special car that has a panoramic glass everywhere.
What?
So you just take pictures left and right for 7 hours of the Alps.
That's
It is
crazy.
awesome.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, I mean, how do you arrange these trips? They're insane. Like, how do you know which places to go? And like, you seem to be hitting all these amazing sort of off the beaten track places. Like, what's your secret?
It's hard to plan these things. I don't know if I have any secret, but I do it so much that I may or may not have a secret app in development that can help, daydreamers or photographers or explorers do this very thing. And now the way you asked that and the way I answered it sounded like we set that up ahead of time, but we didn't.
No, it's something because obviously, like, the more I mean, now with Camera Plus, obviously I'm able to travel a bit more, and it's something that I'm more interested in, and certainly, I look at you as such an inspiration for, wow, it's raining hard. Sorry. But just as such an inspiration of someone who just flies by the seat of his pants, takes amazing photos, and you just keep hitting on these amazing, like that museum. That was possibly one of my favorite shots you've ever taken.
Oh, thanks. That's nice of you. That museum's awesome. You got to go.
It looks like the most amazing place. I mean, that's a place where I would seriously just sneak in the bathroom and hope they locked me in for the night.
Yeah, it's cool. Although, so she's talking about this Jules Verne-like natural history museum in Paris, and if you go, or if anybody goes, just call ahead of time and make sure you can use a tripod, because I think they will let you. You just have to plan it. It's hard to shoot without a tripod. I did that without a tripod, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't really that easy. Hey, Mitch, I'm sorry we got interrupted while you were telling us something or asking me something. What's that?
I was?
Yeah. Oh no, I thought you were in the middle of a conversation. I interrupted you.
I want to know who writes all your apps.
My apps or Lisa's apps?
Yours.
Mine.
I know who does Lisa's.
Oh, by the way, that app I just mentioned, it's going to be free. I have no business model. Anyway, so my apps are made by Lavocado, which is really just a guy in Austin who's a good friend named Mark Powell. He's a genius iPhone developer. And basically we get together at Dunkin' Donuts and for breakfast at this place called Kirby's, and it's really famous in Austin. And we just sit there and we design, and we're laid back and have a omelets and drink coffee and talk about features and
See, that's not my experience, Trey. You really have a nice situation. Because mine is a little bit more tense.
Yeah, well, you guys are big time. We're just a couple of Austin guys just chilling out, building stuff that we think is fun, you know. So you're a different situation.
I really look forward to this new app because, you know, I have various different methods of finding cool places to shoot. And frankly, nowadays, I just go to your Flickr stream and I'm like, where is Trey shot? Because he knows where it's at. And then I go to that place and I'm like, crap, he totally got the best angle here. Like, how am I going to find a better angle? And
no.
But it, you know, I've used Flickr a lot because I mean, I just did a Europe trip. So when I was in London, I had a couple weeks where I could just literally goof off and take pictures. And I would go to Flickr and I would, you know, type in London and find the most interesting shots and, you know, find the photographers who, because generally local photographers will find those magical angles and be like, oh, well, instead of shooting, you know, from this angle, go behind that structure. And that's actually one of, when I was in Austin, I had seen that you took a picture behind the Parliament. Is that what you call them? Parliament buildings? Capitol.
We call it the Capitol.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we call ours Parliament. It's not Parliament. It's
your fake Canadian government.
Oh.
With the puppet leader that we installed. Wow. Oh, go ahead.
But you had taken a picture from behind, you know. So when I went there, I knew that there was this amazing angle from behind the Capitol building. And stuff like that you wouldn't necessarily know if you just said, okay, well, I'm going to hit, you know, Big Ben, and I'm going to shoot, you know. So finding those angles, and so I've used Flickr a lot for that. But it's, you know, it takes a long time, and, you know, it'd be good to have like a really solid trip plan, because I know a lot of photographers, when they travel, they'll sightsee, and that's not necessarily the best way to get these amazing shots. Like, yeah.
No, I feel your pain because, you know, I travel all over and I'm always trying to find interesting places. And I'm building this app primarily for myself. And I think that I love it and I'm able to use it to source amazing places and save time. And because that's the real valuable thing is time. Yeah. And we're also busy nowadays, and we want to make sure that we maximize our experience when we're out and about. And the other aspect is that I know that most people don't travel. Most people stay very close to where they are. But there's actually all kinds of amazing discoveries around where they are as well. And so, you know, it works in foreign locations and it works in local locations. And I use all the various apps to try to help me, but none of them quite hit the spot. And so this is really been quite an undertaking, and it's going to be really, really awesome. All right. Hey, we have someone else that joined us. Hey, Cody, can you hear us now? Over. Maybe he can just type.
Hey, Cody said he has mic
How about you,
problems.
Jordan? Where are you coming in from?
I'm good. I'm from Ontario, Canada.
Oh, another Canadian. Sorry. I do like Canadians. I didn't mean anything bad by that hater statement.
It's okay.
You guys are all laid back and cool.
Yeah. That's just how we roll.
And you, Michael Himawan, where are you from? What do you do in Georgia?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, what kind of work?
Working.
Okay.
IT.
You were being really cagey there. I thought you might be a contract killer or something. You had a really serious face. You go, working. Hey, go ahead, Lisa.
I have a technical HDR question.
Okay, I know a guy.
Yeah, I thought you might. So something I've been noticing about some of your pictures is they have this real ethereal quality. Like the Grand Central Station photo you posted. It had, I don't know, it just somehow, had this ethereal quality. And I'm wondering if you're getting that by shooting like 7 different exposures, or is it just like a processing thing? Because right now, like I don't have a tripod here, so I've been doing all these crazy means of shooting HDRs. And, you know, as you know, with the Canon, you can only set 3 exposures in the auto exposure bracketing. So I'm wondering, is 3 enough? Do I need 5? Do I need 7? How do I make my HDRs better?
Okay, well, that is a many tentacled question. And yeah, there's many threads that can lead off into a lot of different areas. But first, I can tell you for your Canon, and I know this because I've been traveling around here with my friend Scott Copeland. He uses a Canon. He's always cursing it because it can only do 3 exposures. But there's something you can do on your Canon. You may know this, that you can take, let's say you want to go from -4 to +4, which is sort of an extreme situation, but this is a good way to describe it. You can first set your exposure compensation to -2, and then take your auto bracketing shots, and then you'll get -4, -2, and 0. And then you can set your exposure compensation to +2, and then you'll get 0, +2, and +4. So you'll end up with 2 plus zeros. You can throw out one of the duplicates, and then you have a wide range. So if you feel like you need more light, that's one way to do it, even though that is a little bit, you know, digitally challenging with your fingers. But I think maybe what you're talking about with this sort of ethereal sense to it is that I don't, there's 2 things you might be seeing. One is that with a lot of HDR processing, the black can go away, and everything appears a little bit washed out or a little bit too bright sometimes. And it's, you know, one of my hobbies is I study all the Impressionist and whatever, and Monet said that you know, no shadow is black. Every shadow has color. And I think that's true when it comes to pigments, but we deal in pixels. And I think that not every photo, but I think many photos should have some black in there, because I think black anchors the eye and gives other colors their vibration. So I always try to have veins of black running through the photo, where nearby colors I feel like need to have more vibration. They need to have
So are you doing
more literal
that?
happen.
Are you doing that with levels after the fact, like just bumping the black?
There's a few ways. One is, for some reason, like I use Photomatix Pro. For some reason, the default setting for the black point in Photomatix is all the way on the left. So I always pull that slider up into the middle a little bit, and that drags some blacks naturally into the photo, and that helps. The other way is, like you said, by using levels or curves to bring back some blacks in certain areas of the photo. And you may not want that all over. You may selectively just want blacks along some sort of a faux horizon that you have decided that needs to pull across a certain area of the photo. And so you can do that selectively with masking or whatnot. And also you kind of have to recall your feeling on the scene, like where did you see the horizon? Where did your eye jump to? Where did your eye avoid? And then you can kind of recreate that experience with the HDR process.
So do you try to be, because clearly I'm not a realist. No, I don't feel like any of my pictures are necessarily real. Like I kind of, it's like very hyper real. It's like, you know, what I would, in my imagination, what I see more. I mean, I'm very, like, obviously I like color and I love, you know, contrast and that kind of thing. So do you try to recreate what you actually see? Because you actually talked about that in a recent video that you posted about your Paris photo. And you said, people think that I paint colors into the sky, but this is actually what it looks like.
Right. Well, you know, I think that the more you do this kind of work like you and I do, and I think you know what I mean. I think other photographers may not know what I mean. But the more you start to intensely see colors, and the more the world does seem sort of dreamlike. I don't know how to explain it, but you do start to see time and color differently. Especially, I think you spend as much time in post processing as I do, and when you're down at this almost microscopic level and messing with light, and you look at the way that light bounces off of various things, different kinds of material, different textures, different times of day, as it reflects and refracts through different kinds of substances, you get a really deep appreciation for light and color. And only when you look at it at that microscopic level for hours and hours and cumulatively days and weeks do you start to see that in the real world. And so it makes it snowball even more. And so you start to see and experience the world in this way, and you're able to feed that back into your post-processing. And this is something that's very hard to explain to people that don't like this kind of stuff. As you know, there's a lot of haters that are real purist when it comes to photography, and that's fine if they want to be like that. But obviously, there are a lot of people like you and me, and people that enjoy this kind of work, that also see the world in this sort of rich, vibrant way. And to us, it's not a drastic artistic recreation of the scene, but it has certain truths in there that are hard to describe in any other way except through these techniques.
Well, I think, especially with, say, a portrait or something like that, where when you see someone in real life and their eyes are just like vibrant blue or, piercing green, and you see that, and then you take a photo and then you look at it and you're like, wow, that looks so dull. Like, that's not what it actually looked like, and that's not how I experienced it. And, obviously when you're dealing with a raw file, it's not necessarily reality. It's like a muted, version of what you actually saw. So then to bring up those, especially like with a lot of my portraits, people like, were her eyes that big? Were they that blue? And I'm like, yeah, that's what she looked like, and that she was that beautiful. And I feel like by taking, like, bringing those aspects up and like really focusing on them, and like, it actually brings more truth to the actual, like, what your experience was. And I don't feel like it's false to take away, a giant pimple or like, and I do that in HDR work as well. Like, if there's like a person that's like, in the wrong place, I don't want that person there, I'm going to take that person out because it's, not the reality that I want. So it's this balance between creating what you actually experienced and then, making it a little bit more, I don't know, vibrant somehow.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's, I had a really interesting experience. I met a guy who's one of my idols, is an author named Neal Stephenson. He writes sci-fi books. You're not as nerdy as me, so I don't expect you to know who he is. But he, so I spoke at this conference about HDR, and I did my old van down by the river speech. And then afterwards, I got to talk with him, and he was asking me about raw files, because it was his first time I think he's ever heard about it. And so I was trying to explain to him how the raw file contains a lot of light, right? It contains multiple exposures inside one file. And I was comparing it to a JPEG, where a JPEG is just sort of a thin slice of the happenstance light. But a raw file is sort of like a thick slice that contains different light levels for every pixel along the way. And so he said something very interesting to me, because he has a different sort of brain and sees things in a different way. And he said, so really inside that one raw file, you're capturing time. And at first I started to correct him, and then I thought, well, you know what, he's right, because what you can do when you dial the exposure back and forth, either on the whole photo or on just part of the photo by running it through photomatics or masking or whatever you might do, what you're doing is you're adjusting the time that happened right there. And like when you talk about seeing someone with really interesting eyes, like a kid, well, your mind doesn't take quick JPEG snapshots. You're experiencing like the way the kid's eyes might glisten in the light as they dart around a room, and you kind of remember that whole experience of it. And so, when you take this raw photo and you're able to, pull out all the light that was bouncing and refracting around his eyes and make his eyes really pop out, then I think that is as true, or probably even more true, than just a flat JPEG. If that makes any sense.
It does. It does to me. Well, we agree on these things, so it's not much of a debate here.
It's just like an internal dialogue. These are the talks I have with myself all the time.
I know, yeah. I mean, I always, like, when I receive negative feedback, I always think, well, I wonder if I'm doing this wrong. But at the end of the day, you just have to kind of stay true to what you like. And I often put comments like, recently I posted a picture of Westminster Abbey that was taken with a wide-angle lens, and therefore it's all like leaning and, crazy town. And I say, this is the way I saw it. I saw it as this ominous structure that was just kind of, and that's not necessarily how you see it. But I think that if we don't take these risks and do these things, then we're just going to end up with the same boring picture over and over and over again. And that's what I love about the ability to do these HDRs is that we can create something unique, that like we're an artist and we're creating something. Like if we just all shot the exact same picture, the exact same lens, I mean, it would be a pretty boring world.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of photographers out there that are collectors that want to go just collect the shot. And I think that's okay. But at some point, you do begin to transcend that, and you want to do something more. It doesn't mean that HDR is necessarily the answer, but it's a fun answer for those of us that see the world in sort of this rich way. Hey, let me take some random questions from all these nice people that are here. I'll pick randomly, not even knowing if you really have a question or not. Let me ask you, Keith Barrett. Keith, why don't you ask away? Okay.
So Trey, when you take a photograph, are you trying to recreate the reality as much as you can and get all the detail in, or are you trying to capture and relate an impression?
For me, it's an impression, because I think that's what you take away, because a memory is something that is this ephemeral, fleeting thing. And it's very elusive, trying to pin down exactly what you saw and what you felt. You have a remote feeling of this. And so I think by taking interesting photos and processing them in a certain way, you can almost short circuit your way into people's brains and confuse them a little bit and leave some mysteries in there so that their brain can fill in these gaps with their own experience. So if there is some mystery in your picture of the barn, they can fill in that mystery with their own experience, and then it makes the photo as much theirs as yours. And so to me, if it's too literal, then you have left no room for the viewer's imagination. And I think that's part of your goal as an artist, is to stimulate the imagination of the viewer.
Hello, Trey. Can
Hello.
I ask you a question? Hi.
Yes, you may.
I work as a photojournalist, and we're not allowed to manipulate photos at all for the stuff we move on the wire. I was wondering, do you have a line that you won't cross when it comes to Photoshop? Like, would you remove someone from a photo if they were in a place you didn't like, or where do you draw your line?
What I do in Photoshop, and Lisa may be more extreme than me, but I
definitely more extreme.
I will remove a small person from a photo, and I don't mean a midget, by the way. I just mean somebody that is not taking up too big of a screen, part of the screen. If they're really big, it's just hard to remove them. I'll just wait and be patient, wait for them to move. The other thing that I will do is I'll remove light post or things that are just ruining kind of the mojo of the scene, like definitely telephone lines and these sorts of things. I'll get rid of those. One thing I don't do though, and just because I don't do it doesn't mean I don't have a problem with it, but I don't add stuff to a photo. Like I won't bring in a sky from one photo and paste it into a sky in one of my photos. I don't bring in a giant moon from one photo and paste it into like a cityscape. To me, that's a little bit too much. And as many times as I try to take pictures of the moon, I'm convinced that most moon city shots are totally fake. But anyway, that's where I cross. That's where I draw the line. How about you, Lisa? Do you even have a line?
Do I have a line? Well, I think it's different. I mean, obviously, with portraits, especially if you're shooting models in that context, there really is nothing that I wouldn't do. But as for, like what you just said, like I won't paste, a sky from someplace else or a giant rainbow from another shot into. But as far as like, I will remove pretty much anything I find distracting, and that might mean slightly altering a very famous building. If I don't like, if there's like a pole or a box or something like that, definitely people, like I've shot photos of Vegas where I've shopped out a lot of people, like most of them, because I don't like how it looks. But I'm not creating reality. I'm creating, just an impression of something. And if I'm just shooting, a building in Vegas, it's not really important that that's real. In the same way that if I'm shooting a fashion model, we don't necessarily want to see what she really looks like. We want to see what, and that starts a whole debate of like, do we feel like Photoshop is lying? But I mean, honestly, there's no escaping it. It's just the kind of culture that we're in, that we don't want to see a model's like imperfections. We don't want to see their little wrinkles or their pimples, all that stuff's got to go, in my opinion.
Hey Trey.
Yes, sir.
You posted a picture of the steampunk subway, which you subsequently went back and fixed some issues with.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, like, how often do you go back and redo a photo or adjust it, or do you only do that when there's something glaringly wrong? Or
Yeah, I very rarely go back and fix anything. I was on a train when I edited that photo, and for some reason, I think like the bottom, like 3% of the photo was hanging off the bottom. It was out of the frame, and I didn't realize there was a big discontinuity on the bottom from where I had stacked the photos, and so it was really ugly. But it did give me a chance to go, because I had uploaded to Picasa, right, for Google Plus, and there's no way to like replace a photo, and that's a problem. So like on SmugMug, I will go replace a photo, and that's not an issue. But Picasa actually has this edit photo on the web, which I think is scary, being a hardcore client Photoshop guy. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try editing the photo like with this web version of this light Photoshop. But all I needed to do was crop, and it worked out perfect. But anyway, I usually don't do that very much, but I had to there because it was such an egregious error, and it was, people pointed it out like, hey, you got a problem down there, you need to fix that, and it really kind of
And they always do.
yeah,
oh,
they
boy.
do. But you know what it is, Lisa? Yeah, I think it is, people like really want to be helpful, and
Yeah.
when they say these helpful things, it comes off as sounding mean, but I don't really think they mean it in a mean tone. It's just one of these internet things where
Yeah.
they just want to be helpful and be involved. And I think that a lot of photographers or artists are just kind of defensive people, and you see something and your first reaction is to take it in a negative light. So I don't
Yeah.
think they mean it like that.
I do. I find it difficult, but
Yeah.
ultimately, I hope that it makes me stronger, if not a little bit better.
Well, let's take one more random question and then we'll tie it up because I got to hit the sack, and I'm sure you got things to do, Lisa. A random person, Mitch, what do you want to know? Okay, Cody was holding up
you
a
picked the wrong
Post-it.
guy. Pick somebody else.
Did that say, please send food
Cody's
or
holding
help?
up a Post-it.
I have a question in the chat. Okay, let me look in the chat. Oh, he keeps pasting it over and over. Okay, I see. It says, Trey, do you ever get a shot that just doesn't work when you process it in Photomatics? Yes, but more rarely now, because now when I'm on a scene and I set up, I pretty much know what my my Google my Photomatic settings are going to be. I know where my sliders are going to be, so on and so forth. And like just last night, I was up on the top of this mountain in St. Moritz, really, really high up. And, you know, it was kind of like one of those things where, you remember in The Price is Right, they had that little funicular that went up the tracks, and then you would try to guess the proper price of the can of Campbell's soup. I got really good at this because I stayed at home a lot, sick. But anyway, so I went all the way to the top of this thing, and I tried to take a picture down the mountain of the city of St. Moritz and the mountains and the lakes and everything, but it was just really hazy. And so I took 5 photos, and all the photos came out just hazy. And I know that when I run these things through Photomatics that they're just not going to look that good, because it's going to kind of exacerbate the haziness, and it's going to be even more washed out. So I don't know how I'm going to rescue that photo, but it's an interesting challenge. And this is, of course, what I like having these weird situations that I have to figure out. And I assume this happens for you too, Lisa, right? You start processing something and it's just like, this isn't coming together.
Definitely. I mean, obviously I cheat a lot more than you by using like one photo and then creating 3 different JPEGs out of it. And just because I've been so bad with tripods, and so I try to cheat a lot. And sometimes they really don't work. I feel like sometimes there's just noise that it's just like, where did this noise come from? Like, was it dark or, you know, and then of course I use Lightroom to fix that noise. But sometimes, yeah, there are definitely shots where something's not right and I'm not sure what that is. And I do think taking a lot of shots helps. That's why I asked that question, whether, you know, 3 shots is enough. And I think sometimes 3 shots is enough, and sometimes I think it really isn't. And I think some of my better shots have been taken definitely with more care. And, you know, noise is definitely an issue. And I'm not sure if your camera's better on noise. I've heard it is, but I'm sure that's a problem if you don't have like one of the top of the line DSLRs. You probably might be dealing with noise in Photomatic.
Yeah, noise is always a problem.
Yeah.
But we should save that for another conversation.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because it's a great conversation, but it's the noise conversation can go on and on. There's all kinds of ways to deal with it. Yes, sir.
Hey, Trey. Quick question. Somebody in the Ustream chat room wanted to know if Photomatics works in Lion.
I don't know. I haven't gone to Lion yet. I don't know why it wouldn't work.
I'm generally like the first person to switch over, but
yeah.
For some reason I've just been really like waiting to see. I keep asking people, it's like, does it affect Photoshop? Have you been having any problems with Lightroom? Like because I feel like I've got things under control. Like my machine's working well. I've got things under control. And it's just like, I know that once I download it, that I'm just going to get all geeky and just like want to learn everything about it. And I just don't have the time right now. But I haven't heard anyone say anything, but.
Me neither. Someone I think would have tweeted me and said that, hey, did you know Photomatics doesn't work? Or so I haven't heard anything that it doesn't work. I don't know though.
It might be a question that you ask them directly. The Photomatics dudes.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be responsive and if you ask. All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Lisa. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I learned some things, and hope other people did too. And thank you, Keith, for recording everything. Are we going to be able to get this for download later?
Yeah, I needed a little post-processing on it, but I'm going to try to get it in your hands within a day. And
okay, well, that's probably faster than I could do anything with it, but I'll get it up on the website too.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, nice meeting everybody, and enjoyed seeing the chat fly by and this sort of thing. And when I post it, everyone that was here in the chat, please come put links to your work and your portfolios and that sort of thing, so people get to know you as well. All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Lisa, and thanks, Keith, and thanks everybody else. See y'all later.
See you guys later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.